Everyone ignored the CEO's paralyzed daughter until the single dad asked, "Can I be your date?" The gala hall glittered with chandeliers, laughter, and champagne glasses. Wealthy heirs, politicians, and executives filled the room in elegant suits and gowns. At the center of it all stood Richard Callahan, one of the most powerful CEOs in the country. But just off to the side, in a wheelchair, sat his daughter Emily. She was beautiful, her long auburn hair falling over her shoulders, but her paralysis kept her apart. Guests smiled politely, then turned away, as if afraid her presence might dim their own shine. She tried to hide her loneliness with a practiced smile, but her eyes betrayed her isolation. Across the room, a man in a modest suit stood with his young son. Daniel was not part of this glittering world. He was a single dad, a mechanic by trade, who had been invited only because of a scholarship program his son won, sponsored by Callahan's company. He didn't belong among billionaires, but he didn't care. He was here for his boy. Then Daniel noticed Emily, alone, overlooked. The crowd kept moving around her like she was invisible. His chest tightened. He knew that feeling all too well. Being ignored, being underestimated. He walked over, his son holding his hand. "Hi," he said softly. Emily looked up, surprised someone was speaking to her. Daniel smiled and bent slightly. "You look like you're waiting for someone to ask you to dance. But if it's okay with you, I was wondering if I could be your date tonight." For a moment, Emily just stared. No one had asked her that. No one had dared. Then, her lips trembled, and tears glistened in her eyes. Her father, watching from across the hall, froze. Richard Callahan had seen investors grovel before him. Politicians begged for favors, but never had he seen his daughter's face light up like that. Emily whispered, "Yes." Daniel didn't hesitate. He offered his arm as if she were royalty. She laughed through her tears, and for the first time in years, she felt seen not as a chair, not as a burden, but as a woman. The music swelled, and when Daniel wheeled her onto the dance floor, silence fell across the gala. The powerful and the proud watched in awe as the single dad and the paralyzed daughter twirled with grace, their laughter carrying louder than the music itself. That night, one man's courage to ask a simple question shattered walls money could never break. The Callahan Gala was the social event of the year. Crystal chandeliers blazed overhead, orchestras played softly, and waiters in crisp uniforms moved through the crowd with silver trays of champagne. Men in tailored suits talked deals worth billions. Women in glittering gowns compared jewels and whispered secrets. At the heart of it all was Richard Callahan, the titan of industry, head of Callahan Enterprises, and one of the wealthiest CEOs in the nation. His sharp smile commanded the room. Everyone wanted his attention. Everyone but one, sitting quietly in the corner, half hidden near the velvet drapes, was Emily Callahan, his daughter. She was stunning hair like burnished copper, a graceful face, emerald green eyes. But she sat in a wheelchair, her legs still beneath her gown. People looked, smiled politely, and then turned away. They spoke to her father, never to her. They whispered when they thought she couldn't hear. "She's so beautiful. Such a shame I heard it was the accident. Poor thing. Such a burden for the old man." Emily's smile was practiced perfectly polite, perfectly hollow. Her loneliness pressed on her chest like a weight. Across the ballroom, Daniel Hayes adjusted the second-hand suit he had borrowed from his brother. He didn't belong here. He knew it. Everyone knew it. But he had been invited because of his son. Noah had just won a scholarship from the Callahan Foundation, something Daniel never thought possible for the boy of a struggling single father. Tonight's gala was a celebration for the recipients, and Daniel had promised his son they would go. "Dad," Noah whispered, tugging on his sleeve, "why does that girl look so sad?" Daniel followed his son's gaze. His heart clenched. The girl in the wheelchair, no older than her mid-20s, was watching the floor like she wished she could disappear. "That's Emily Callahan," Daniel murmured. "The CEO's daughter." Noah tilted his head. "But why isn't anyone talking to her?" Daniel didn't answer right away. He knew the look on Emily's face. He had worn it himself, back when people avoided him after his wife's death, when whispers of pity followed him. "Because," Daniel said slowly, "sometimes people forget kindness when they get too busy trying to impress others." Emily shifted uncomfortably in her chair as another pair of businessmen strolled past without meeting her eyes. She had convinced herself to come this year, thinking maybe things would be different. But the silence and avoidance felt worse than outright cruelty. Then she heard a voice. "Excuse me, may I sit here?" She blinked. A man in a slightly ill-fitting suit stood before her, his young son at his side. He wasn't one of the elites. She could tell from his calloused hands. The way he stood, like he was more used to lifting engines than sipping champagne. "Of course," Emily said softly, surprised anyone had asked. He sat, introducing himself and his son. "I'm Daniel Hayes. This is Noah." Emily smiled at the boy. "Congratulations on your scholarship." Noah beamed. "Thank you, ma'am." Daniel studied her for a moment, then leaned slightly closer. His voice was low, careful. "You know, it seems to me everyone's too busy tripping over themselves for the CEO to notice the most beautiful woman in the room is sitting here, alone." Emily froze, her lips parting. No one spoke to her like that. No one dared. "You don't have to say that," she whispered, eyes glistening. "I don't say anything I don't mean," Daniel replied simply. Silence stretched between them. Then Daniel stood and held out his hand. "Emily, would you do me the honor of being my date tonight?" Her breath caught. The words hung in the air like magic. Her heart hammered. But slowly, hesitantly, she placed her hand in his. "Yes," she whispered. The music shifted, a slow waltz filling the ballroom. Daniel wheeled Emily onto the dance floor, not caring about the stares burning into his back. He guided her chair with gentle precision, moving in rhythm with the music. To everyone watching, it was as if she were dancing. Gasps spread through the crowd. Conversations halted. For the first time, the spotlight was not on Richard Callahan, but on Emily, her laughter ringing out, her eyes shining brighter than the chandeliers. At the edge of the room, Richard Callahan himself stood frozen. He had seen men grovel for his money, women beg for his favor, but he had never seen his daughter's smile glow with such unguarded joy. The orchestra swelled, the crowd parted, and in that moment, Emily wasn't the paralyzed daughter. She wasn't a burden or a shadow. She was simply a woman being seen. Because one single dad dared to ask the question no one else would. "Can I be your date?"